Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, welcome to lecture number 12, part 3. We were discussing different species terminologies. So the next is semi-species. Borderline cases are called semi-species, mean species between species and subspecies. So the between these two boundaries, all those species which lies between the species and subspecies are known as semi-species, or you can say that a population that have acquired some but not yet all the attributes of the species. And in those populations which are isolated, and after isolation they have acquired some of the characteristics but not all those characteristics, so that we can call it, and that is a new species. Explanation. So like incipient species or semi-species are related things. Like for example, individuals of these groups, they rarely interbreed, but if they interbreed, so all their offspring will be sterile. So these are semi-species. Now a natural population which are about to genetically isolate from the rest of the population, mean from the parent population. For example, always we take this example that for example, there's a parent population, some of the species they become isolated geographically, they because of some barrier or some reason they isolated from each other, so they will start differentiating different characters will start accumulating in them because of the new environment or because of the needs. And so these incipient or semi-species are those who are about to genetically isolate or reproductively isolate from the original population, but yet they have not accomplished all the qualities to become reproductively isolated, completely reproductively isolated from the parent population. So such species are known as semi-species. Then there is sibling species. So sibling species are actually those species which are morphologically similar, but they are isolated reproductively. Mean morphologically, when you look at them, when you look at their morphological characters, so you will say that these are the same species. But when you bring them together, they will not interbreed because they are reproductively isolated. Like for example, let me give you an example of the species like this. The Anoples atriparvus and Anoples mecolupennis, these are morphologically similar, but these two are very different. They are different species. They are reproductively isolated. The same way, the Drosophila group or this Drosophila complex. So there is a Drosophila parasimillis and there is Drosophila pseudobscura. So again, they are similar morphologically, but they are different. Mean they are they as reproductively isolated, so they are different species. Maybe they look similar morphologically, but they are like different reproductively. They are isolated from each other. Then there is a syntopic species. So a syntopic species, these are two or more related species which are occupying the same macro habitat. Mean they are living in a macro habitat, and macro means a wide, a large habitat. They are occurring in the same locality and they are observably in a close proximity, and they could possibly interbreed. So such species which are occupying the same microhabitat and they are occurring in the close proximity or vicinity, and they could possibly interbreed. So such species will be known as syntopic species, and the opposite is allotopic species. So again, these species, they are like for example the two or more related species which are not occupying. So in case of syntopic, they were occupying the same macro habitat, but here they are not occupying the same macro habitat, and they are presumably they are not lying in close proximity. It means they are like away from each other. They are not living like in the close vicinity or proximity, and so they could not interbreed. So such species are known as allotopic species. And Then the next is morphological species. So like it's clear from its name that those species who are classified on the based of their morphological characteristics. So those species which are known from Linnaean time to the present, and they are based on their morphological or geographical data. So when we classify, or when we for example we study certain animals on the basis of their morphological and geographical data, so such species are known as morphological species. Or any species in which morphological and geographical characteristics are used. Mean, for example, in the study of those species in which we use morphological or geographical characteristic, or in the for example, if you are going to identify certain species, and we are using morphological and geographical characters for their identification, so such species will be known as morphological species. Then there is Agamo-Species. So Agamo-Species is those species which consist of uniparental organisms. Uniparental organism mean they are produced genetically. Uni mean one, and parent mean parental mean parent. When they are reproduced by only one parent, the two parents are not involved in their reproduction. So all those animal species which reproduce parthenogenetically are known as Agamo-Species. So all those species which are producing parthenogenetically are known as Agamo-Species. They have only a single parent, which is normally female. So normally they produce from female. These females may produce gametes, but fertilization does not take place. So in such cases, the female, they produce gametes, but the fertilization does not take place, and the eggs, they develop parthenogenetically. So they reproduce by obligatory parthenogenesis. Like for example, in the case of bees, wasps, and rotifers, the haploid egg develop into haploid individuals, and the haploid eggs are not fertilized by sperms. So this is the Agamo-Species. Then there are Apomactic species. So what are Apomactic species? So first we have to understand the apomaxis. So apomaxis is the reproduction by spatial generative tissue without fertilization. So again, the apomaxis is what is the reproduction by spatial generative tissue without fertilization. So it does not need fertilization. So it includes parthenogenesis and animals, in which the new individual develop from the unfertilized egg. So here, in these animal, parthenogenesis occur without the fertilization of the egg. So the unfertilized egg will generate into an individual through parthenogenesis. So apomixis is an asexual reproduction that occur without fertilization and not involving meiosis. So here, there is no need of meiosis, and the reproduction will occur asexually, mean there is no fusion of male and female gametes. Now, example of apomixis is the apomactic parthenogenesis. So it's in Agamo-Species, or those where the new ones are produced through parthenogenesis. And again, the case is the Apomactic species. Again, the case that here the individuals, they will develop through parthenogenesis. But the difference is here, meiosis is not involved, and in that case, the haploid egg will develop into an individual. But here, the egg is already diploid, because there is no involvement of meiosis, and because of the not involvement of the meiosis, the chromosome set will not go into half, but they it will proceed through the mitosis, and it will have the complete set, the 2n set of chromosome. So the process in which the egg cell is produced through mitosis, not through meiosis. So the egg will be 2 in number of chromosome, not n number of chromosome. So it then develop directly into an embryo without prior fertilization. So there is no need of fertilization because the chromosome number is already double, and it can like parthenogenetically it can develop into a new individual. So the offspring from the apomictic parthenogenesis would therefore be full clone of the maternal parent. Mean like from the female, the egg will for example, there is a female and the female will lay the egg, but that egg is not produced through meiosis, that is produced through mitosis. So it means that the full set of chromosome, 2 in number of chromosome, the complete set is coming from the mother, so there is no involvement from the father. That's why you can say there's a full clone of the maternal parent, because it is completely came from its mother. Then the other one is Panmactic species. So what is Panmactic species? So Panmactic refers to a random mating strategy. Mean a population where there is no restriction for mating. So there is no mating strategy. There is random mating strategy. Everyone has a chance to mate with everyone. That's simple. Like everyone has a chance to mate everyone. So this panmictic refers to random mating strategy. So panmictic population are the ones where all individuals are potential partners. So everyone is a potential partner. I told you anyone can meet everyone. So now thus assume that there is no mating restriction, neither genetic nor behavioral. So genetic mean that there is no genetic isolation, there is no reproductive isolation, there are no other restriction, there is no behavioral restrictions upon the population, and therefore any recombination is possible. Like for example, we will take the example of the American eel, the Anguilla rostrata. Now, this American eel, it migrate from all over the Canada, the United States, the Mexico. So actually, Anguilla rostrata or these eels, they are actually living in fresh water. But during the time of their reproduction, mating, they start their journey, their migration toward the Sargasso Sea in Bermuda. So they start from like all the tributaries of these Canada freshwater canals. This white color that indicates freshwater distribution. So from these freshwater of Canada, from the freshwater of United States, and freshwater of Mexico and Florida and Cuba, and all over the Caribbean, they start their migration. All these populations, they start their migration for reproduction, and they came to this like Bermuda or the Sargasso Sea. So when they all from all these tributaries, when they reach to the Sargasso Sea, they have a random mating strategy, and they mate here. And there is no restriction. The Canadian eel will not meet with the United States one, and United States will not meet with the Mexican one. So there is a random mating strategy, and that's why they have like random mating. And these populations are known as panmactic population. So Panmactic species explanation a little bit. So frequently it is employed, this species is employed to fish, where breeding is just as likely to occur between any two individuals in a population as between any two others. So there will be no like influence. Anyone can meet everyone. So mating in this way is not influenced by environment, geography, or proximity, or heredity, a time of spawning, or social interaction. So, for example, like polygamous mating system. Polygamous mean poly mean many, and gamous mean mating. So, like mating with many. So, in a population genetics context, if a species is a panmactic population, there is no genetic invariance of population structure through its range. For example, this American eel, Anguilla rostrata, are catadromous fish, mean they migrate from the freshwater to saltwater for what? For spawning. fish found from the Caribbean to Greenland. It is distributed from Caribbean to Greenland, and then they migrate to Sargasso Sea for mating. So, however, they all migrate to breed in the same location at the Sargasso Sea. So, the genetic samples from throughout their North American distribution range show a complete lack of genetic differentiation. So, mean there is no genetic differentiation in them because they all across from the Caribbean to the Greenland, they came to the Sargasso for the breeding, and that's why they lack genetic differentiation. They are same or similar, not same, similar, or they show complete panmaxia. Then there's evolutionary species. So what is evolutionary species? Like linkages or ancestral descendant sequences of population, they are evolving separately from each other with their own unitary role and tendencies during the same period of time. So it's like evolutionary species is actually based on evolutionary species concept, which we will discuss in the next chapter, inshallah. Actually, the definition of species based on evolution is like, for example, a species will be considered species if it has a linkage of ancestral and descendant sequence in a population, and that specific population it is evolving separately from all other population of that time, and this specific population or species will have its own unitary role, evolutionary role, and tendencies. Mean they will have their own unique characteristics and their tendencies, where to live, what to eat, and how to breed, and everything. So they will have everything different from the rest of the animals or the organisms which are living or present at the same time. So such species will be called species if they have ancestral descendant linkage and they have a unitary evolutionary role and tendencies from all those organisms with which they are sharing their time and period. Then there is Paleospecies or successional species. So these are the temporarily successive species in a single lineage. I mean, for example, you can see if you look at the history of the world. So at different times, different species were at their peak or they were flourishing. Like for example, in Cretaceous and Jurassic, dinosaurs were flourishing, and there was an age of fishes. There was an age of amphibians and age of mammals, and this era is known as the age of man. So in a single lineage, as a temporarily successive species are known as successional species. Then there is paleontological species. So species having no living representative and their all known samples are being fossils are known as paleontological species. And in a simple example, like dinosaur as a paleontological species, because there is no living member of them, only the fossils are present. Woolly mammoth, they are also paleontological species because there is no living member of them and they are all in fossil form. Then there is a morpho-species. So like a species that is based only on morphological characteristics. So when we identify a species only using its morphological characteristics are known as morpho-species. Then there's form species. So a species in the fossil form but presented only by fragments or isolated parts. For example, I mean species which is present in fossil form, there is no living form, but in fragments form, not like an isolated part, fragmented form, not as a whole. For example, if you take the example of holy mammoth, so they were found in the frozen form, very intact, and the complete organism was found. So that is not form species. But all those species which are not like present in the whole form, but their fragments have been collected from different regions of the world, are known as form species. Then there is Allospecies. So geographic isolates of a species they have reached the species level but have remained members of the superspecies. So Allospecies are those geographic isolates of the species which reached the species level. Mean now they are almost a new species. They are differentiated into a new species, but they have still some members of the superspecies. So such species will be known as Allospecies. Then there is Allochronic species. So species that have existed in different time dimensions are known as Allochronic species. And Synchronic species, which is the opposite, mean all those species which occur in the same time dimension are known as like Synchronic species. These are the links, these are the differences, and thank you so much. If you have any question, please ask.